Hello again, everyone, and welcome to One on One. I'm Martin False. When we come back from the break, one of the best principals around. But how did she get there? We're going to find out a very interesting story when we come back. Who is she? You'll have to wait and see. Don't go away.
One on One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer.
Just in seeing you at games or sporting events, which is where I mostly see, or convocations, wherever it is, you have a very approachable demeanor. Who'd you get that from, your mom or your dad?
Oh, I would say first my dad. I don't think there's any stranger my dad has met or someone that I meet and they don't say, I love your dad. That's your dad.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. David or Judge or,
Right.
whatever they refer to him. So he's very, very approachable and loved to make conversation. He was a paper boy. He had the paper boy route, so he knows where everybody lives. So for him, everything is relative to what street you grew up
Right.
on. Yeah, they live 2 houses down from this person, so probably dad.
But he was endearing when I saw him emceeing Coach Zush,
Yes.
the honoring of Coach Zush. You could tell he had that endearing quality, the same that you have. Things are passed down, aren't they?
I take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
He loves the older generations. He loves the people that paved the way or took interest in young people and really were just the heart of Thibodeau, in its early days.
When I see people like that doing things like that, it tells me, yeah, they take their job serious. But at the end of the day, they remember who they were before they were a judge.
Absolutely.
He's pretty grounded, isn't he?
He's very, very grounded. And it's funny because I've had people say that, and they'll tell me that your dad never forgot he grew up on the South Side, or, your dad always remembered, what went on in the singing lot and
Yeah.
things like that. So, oh yeah, very grounded.
You want to become a teacher. You get past the criticism. Your teacher stands up for you. And to all the teachers, she's absolutely right. We want the smartest people teaching it. What happened from there? When did you meet your husband?
I met him when I went to college. I was a freshman in college and met him. He had gone to play football at Southeastern for a year and then came back, and then they didn't have a football program anymore, so he was a senior at Nichols. So we met in college. He was nervous to meet my dad at first because he was 22 and I was 17 in college.
Yeah, how'd that go?
And he thought,
Can I pry a little bit?
Oh, that was, as nervous as he was, my dad opened the door in a white T-shirt, was eating a hot dog. I think the chili was dripping. You want a hot dog? So that was the, formal introduction. So he realized, oh, this is going to be much better than
Well, that's why it tells me that your dad had all the faith in the world that you would make the right choice.
I think he did.
They brought you up correct. Where's all the judges and where's all that come into your life?
Well, first of all, my husband, his father owned a business that had marsh buggies, swamp buggies, that was involved in the oil industry, which initially planned on just running that business. And then mid-'80s, when that first crisis happened, his dad said, you really need to get a degree and have a backup plan. So Mark finished in business and had started interviewing in Houston and places. There was really nothing local.
Right.
And my dad said, look, none of the girls want to go to law school. If that's something you're thinking about, you have a job here. And our main focus was to live in Thibodeau. We both loved our grandparents. Mark still had his grandparents. And so he literally went to law school so we could live in Thibodeau. So when he got out of law school, he worked with my dad in the private practice and worked in the DA's office for 17 years and really enjoyed that as a prosecutor. So I think it was 35 years that Dad was the city judge and then retired, and then Mark ran for his position.
And I remember meeting him at an early age too, through covering stories, and then later through Coach Morvaughn, still call him Coach, was my coach. And he was always very pleasant and very outgoing. Y'all just have a circle of outgoing, pleasant people.
Well, Mark's mom, I don't know if you ever met Ruth Chiasson. She is involved with Hope for Animals, and she is just the
I've heard the
most
name. I don't know if I've ever really
pleasant,
met.
outgoing woman, never met a stranger. And Mark said that. He said there were two people he wouldn't want to run against for city judge, his mom and my dad. And so he gets a lot of that from his mom. She is just a doll and loves people and just has such a kind heart.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
You're moving through education, and you either get the knock or the phone call or the one-on-one meeting. Michelle, what do you think about being a principal? Take me back.
Well, I guess the first knock was becoming an assistant principal.
Okay.
I think I purposely, when I graduated from college, I was 20. I just turned 21 when I graduated. I couldn't wait to get out and make money. You know, I think I
Yeah.
made $17,000 my first year.
Ooh,
I
you're
know,
rich.
I was rich. And purposely didn't get my master's at the time because I think I knew somebody's going to want me to be in administration. So, and I think you need a master's to do that. So,
Okay.
17 years later, Jeanette Labatt, who was my saving grace in that chemistry class with that career paper, she was the first academic assistant principal at Edie White. And she retired after 42 years at Mount Carmel and then Edie White. She and I talked a lot. She encouraged me to go back to school, begin working on my master's, and consider taking her place. So that really got me in the door with administration. So I served in that role for 6 years. And then Myra Luft was the principal before me. And she announced her retirement in, I want to say it was February of the spring of 2011, probably a little earlier than I thought or planned, but you know, God has a plan.
But you were always a little bit ahead of the curve. Do you think that's fate, or that's just because you put yourself in a position to be there?
Absolutely is God's will. I have come to know and believe that His hand is in everything, and I do not take credit for anything except the mistakes I've made. I don't think He did that, but just the good and timing. It's His timing.
Where did you get that strong, charismatic, or that strong religious? Did that come from mom or dad or grandma or grandpa? Where did it come from?
All of the above. My dad was really the spiritual leader growing up. My mom is the absolute family prayer warrior now. You can ask the grandchildren, you know, Mimi has the room, the library, the religious articles. I think she has her own religious store in her house, but a true prayer warrior. So I've seen the fruit of that. I've seen that through my years at Edie White. I have been so blessed to encounter Christ in a very, very personal and deep way. I have seen miracles. I have seen conversion through the Quandra Leadership Program, which is something that the brothers started years ago when they knew as their numbers would dwindle, that lay people would be in the positions we're in.
Right.
I've been able to travel to Lyon, Rome, Cligatho, Arizona for mission work, but all of those experiences just had this little footprint in this and just continued that voice and that whisper about totally trusting in God and relying in God, and all things come from Him. All things are for Him. So it's been a journey. I wasn't born with this much faith. And just when I think I'm at the point where, yeah, God sends me this little cross to bear or this little sign and says, "You're not there yet. You're not even close, sister."
When you became principal, the first, I don't want to say the first day, but there had to be a first speaking to the students, the faculty, everybody. What was that like? Was it a little nerve-wracking?
It was, but I'll tell you what helped me. I remembered thinking after I was named principal, oh my gosh, please don't let me be the one to mess this up. You know, I'm coming after this brother, this brother, this brother, you know, this late principal, this one, and just so, I guess, emotional about that. But I attended a retreat, and Brother Ivy LeBlanc was one of the leaders of the retreat. And Brother Ivy was so vulnerable with us. And Brother Ivy, you know, we all had this image of Brother Ivy. He was all knowing and, you know, Brother Ivy. And he said when he became provincial, there were things that were happening at the time that were just, he thought were so unbearable. And there was a bishop that really took him in and said, Ivy, you know, we're going to help you with this and we're going to take you in. Just seeing how nervous Brother Ivy was made me feel so much better, because it was like, this is going to be okay. It's going to be challenging. And one thing I'll never forget, Brother Ivy said, our work has never been easy. It isn't easy. It will never be easy. And if it is, then it's not us. So I remind myself of that on days or long weeks, or we're having a little challenge or crisis, that it's not supposed to be easy.
You're right. You had a lot of good people before you, but when you saw you were on your way, did you ever like close the door and go, yeah, I got this?
There were many little moments, success stories, but I will say it was probably at least 5 years later. It was a very just long process, establishing just routines, establishing a focus of spiritual life within the school. And, you know, you can't just will it and say, we need to all pray the rosary in October and mean it, but the teaching that went behind that, and meetings with faculty members to be on board with making religious formation the most important part of our school.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
In any business you're in, any school you're in, there's always that one person or two people, and I say this in a nice way, they're going to buck the system just a little bit because they're a dominant personality. Did you know before you took the principal job that, okay, I'm going to have that, but here's how I'm going to handle it?
Yes, because that is human nature, and I'm a people watcher. So I watched how my predecessors handled situations, and I watched the challenges they faced. And really, it's not so much the students. The students, they work themselves out. And I tell our young teachers now, the longer you're there, most of my students are parents now in the school. So that I know. I have students who are 45 years old, 46 years old. So that has been fun, and it works out. They become great dads and great moms. But when you're in your 20s and they're challenging you, and you just think, I can never name my child that name now. You know, it's just scarred me for life. But that ends. So the true challenges, I think, are with the adults. You know, parents are passionate about their children. Their focus is their own child. I remember Myra Luff teaching me about the mama bear, papa bear, mentality. And then our colleagues are the same. They're human. They have things happening in their families. They have things going on in their personal lives. You bring all of that to school with you and to work with you. So I think I was prepared for that.
And you could sense when somebody's having a...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the Eddie Haskells of Eddie White, I'm sure, and I know these young boys, some of them are very spirited, but some of them are very clever. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've had days where somebody came up to you and said, hello, Miss Chiasson, you're looking mighty lovely today. And you're recalling the old Leave It to Beaver days with Eddie Haskell. I'm sure you have to get to know the lay of the land with the students also, and their personalities.
I do. And it's interesting because for years I was admissions director, which I really loved that role, because that gives you the opportunity to really know every single student coming into school, their parents, their situation, their background. So I miss knowing everything. And then when my children were going through school, I knew all of those students because they had been in school with my 3 children. So now I find myself, I'll go through the database having to look and make the connections, who's who, and I try to be a little proactive. So I frequently ask teachers, who are your frequent flyers? You know, that's the code word. So I'll go sit into that class or maybe have lunch with a student or two and try to get ahead of the rascals.
If we had to ask you a question, what's the best thing about being a principal? But on the flip side, what's the thing you don't like the most about being a principal? What would it be?
I guess the downside is the time commitment. All of the hours that you see me, all of the moments, trips, bus rides, that's time away from my family. So that has been probably the biggest challenge, you know, and I'll never get some of those moments back.
Right.
But so that's the downside. You know, in the old days, the brothers, when they ran the school, they lived on campus. So it was nothing to just go to an event and then walk in to their kitchen and eat and be there. And, you know, they didn't have a spouse and children. Yeah. So that would probably be the downside. There's so many positives that it's hard to narrow it down. But I would say in general, being able to be in a place where faith is the central part. There are days like each year I join the seniors for adoration on their last trip to the chapel on a Wednesday. And I always tell Tim, I think I need to give you money back. I just spent the day in adoration. Like, who gets to do that, you know, on the clock and on their job? So those moments are good. The kids are energizing. So just being around them. I rode the bus to the girls' soccer playoff game in Lake Charles on Monday. They sang the whole way there. They just had a ball. They even sang on the way home. They lost, but eventually when they got over it, they sang on the way home. So just experiences like that, being around young people, it's energizing.
I'm going to close with always the one word that you would use to describe your life, not just as a principal, but growing up, having such a wonderful family, having a wonderful husband, having wonderful children, having wonderful siblings. What's the one word you would use to describe yourself?
I think it has to be, and I've been praying a lot about this and for this, humility. And just so humbled that I have been so blessed, so humbled. I have just had an amazing life and an amazing life journey. And so many people have come into my life through my work, through our family, that it has to be from God. No, I didn't do this. I didn't cause this. I didn't will this. I let God do his work through me. So that's probably the one thing that I did. But I would have to say humility, recognizing that it's him.
I think that's the quality I love the most about you. I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for the work you've done. Thank you for your journey. And I'm glad that teacher stood up for you.
Me too.
One day, because maybe you'd be a judge or a doctor or whatever you chose. But thank you, Michelle. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.